recently, I decided to sell my house and downsize significantly. Like, spring was coming around the corner. I was just like dreading that uphill lawn mowing experience, and like, I think my garbage disposal went out. I don't know, it was just like, so many things were going wrong and I was already over it. So one night I'm just like, I'm gonna list my house for sale, see what happens on Zillow. And the next day, it was sold. It was crazy. I was not expecting that. I thought I'd have like 6 months to think about it. And these people were like, we want to buy a house and we want to move in before closing, whatever, like, just get out. I'm like, all right. So I'm driving around and I'm like, okay, cool. Like, well, this is what I wanted. I mean, let's go for it. So I find an apartment. It's awesome. It's got like everything you could ever want, easy living. I'm like, okay, this is it. I'm excited. So I signed my lease, and like, just in a matter of days, I went from like trying to decide to like moving my stuff. And everything was just going great. I couldn't believe it. So my first night in my new apartment, talking like 4 days later, I'm sitting there, my mattress is on the floor, I have like beer, and I'm just like feeling so grateful, like, wow, like so many people struggle with this process. I feel so grateful. Asking price, whatever, you know, and I was like, damn, 33 must be the age when like you just start making the right decisions. I've never had anything go this smoothly, like, ever. So I swear, like, simultaneously with that thought going through my head, I hear like the loudest, yappiest dog of my life coming from below. And I'm like, this is weird. Like, I've been back and forth a few times, but never heard this dog. Like, pay attention to that stuff, because I'm not used to that anymore. Just keeps going on and on and on. Like, it doesn't stop all night. It's like, I feel like someone maybe died in this building. Like, what is going on? So the night goes around, I get like no sleep, and I make it to a point to try to find the dude that I know lives there, because I've seen him, and like talk to him, and it turns out Ted, who lives below me, and Charlie, his pup, well, Charlie has separation anxiety and Ted works nights. There's nothing you can do about it, basically. I mean, he was cool about it, but I mean, what am I gonna do? So, a couple days go by of this, I'm seriously exhausted, I'm just not getting good sleep, and I'm like, I call the closing company, I'm like, is it too late to undo this? Because I forgot why I got a house a couple years ago, and now I remember, this is terrible. Of course they were like, no, you know, or maybe yes, but it's gonna cost you whatever. And so a few more days go by, same thing, and I'm like, I need to make a new plan, maybe I need to move units, whatever. And like the most peculiar thing happened. Like, I noticed that I was less and less bothered. It was strange to me. Like, I didn't realize it at the time, but like every day that went by, it bothered me less. Like, yeah, no, Charlie didn't get like prescription to Xanax, or Ted didn't quit his job or change hours. I didn't even buy headphones, which would have been a good idea. Nothing changed about the situation except I was less bothered. I'm like, that's interesting. Oh, we should have switched. That's my house by Felicia. And that's Charlie. So I'm just like, how am I not going insane? Well, so basically, it's actually very natural that as humans, we have this extraordinary ability to just get used to things. You just deal with it, and like it becomes so repetitive that you don't even notice it anymore. So another example of this is like, think about when you're trying to learn how to parallel park. You like turn the radio off, try to visualize it, like I think it's gonna work this time. It never did, but you know, you stopped everything. Don't talk to me, I'm doing this. And over time, you know, you probably find yourself like, oh, I didn't have to turn the music off that time, or I'm still talking to you. Like, this is just natural at this point. I mean, I'm still not really quite there, but that's my analogy. And so you just grew more comfortable. And so basically, with practice, repetitive actions turn into operations that we can perform without considering them anymore. Our brain essentially shuts down at that point. It's open to other things because that, I've done that 100 times and I don't have to think about it. So how this is called like human conditioning or habituation. They're not exactly the same thing, but similar. So when you think about the habit loop, is what they call it, first you have a cue or a trigger that tells your brain to go in automatic mode and let that behavior unfold. Then there's your routine. That's what we think of when we think of habits. That's the behavior itself. And then there's the reward. And the reward is basically something that our brain receives that says, like, you did a good thing. Do that again next time. So, like, in cases like Charlie and me, human conditioning is great because I can't change the situation. Like, thank God I'm okay now. Or parallel parking, it's easier now. I'm going to have to do it the rest of my life. I might as well, learn it. It's a great thing. But it's not always, like, habituation and that whole habit loop is not always a good thing. Because in our line of work, it's easy to solve a problem that almost everyone sees, but it's very hard to solve a problem that almost no one sees because you don't even see it. So as designers, developers, engineers, like, that's our line of work. It's our job to either someone brings a problem to us and we fix it, we notice it and fix it. Like, that's our job. We like to fix things. So it's important for us specifically to, like, understand that habit loop and not fall victim to it. Basically, like, intentionally knowing when to pay attention and when not to. Like, when not to pay attention, yeah, like parallel parking, things that you're doing every day, yeah, free up your brain for other important things, but, maybe intentionally, not all the time, because you're not going to solve those obscure problems when you're just in a habit. This is true in software, anything. So basically, I'm saying that we have to do this. We basically have to, like, succumb to those annoying everyday things, actions, to really ever solve them and be the one that's like, oh, I never realized that was so annoying and now it's fixed. That's awesome. I just had gotten used to it. Like, you've seen people using your app and you're like, whoa, like, that is the craziest workaround I've ever seen, and you're doing that because I missed something. But they're just, like, used to it. They're like, whatever. So, yeah, as a UX designer, or whatever I want to call myself these days, I'm essentially working on these user flows, and I'm trying to play on that habit loop. I'm trying to make the app work in a way that once they use it a few times, it's mindless. They can perform those actions, and their brain space is available for, like, their real job and what they really want to do. So in complex business software, like, this is really hard to do. I mean, you're doing a lot of things. It's not that easy to make it simple and mindless. I mean, that's the goal. Do we ever get there? I don't know. Actually, it's funny. I said I don't know what to call myself because it's funny. For like my entire career, I've avoided anything designy in my title. Like, no, I'm a programmer. I'm a programmer through and through. That's it. So I started programming in, 2005, and UX wasn't a thing then. So, but I realized, like, when I'm starting to give into this, like, UX, UI gal, designer, whatever, I realized why I had avoided that for so long, and it's because I had always, like, put artists and designers and those kind of people in their own, like, group. You were given this God-given ability. Like, it just comes naturally. You were born with it, and I was not that person. Like, in art class, no. My stuff looked like a third grader when I was in sixth grade. I'm not an artist. But what I'm getting at is that the software design process, then the UX process, is not reserved for people that can just make things pretty anymore. Like, if you want to go down that path and you enjoy like finding those minute details and, you know, giving into those problems and trying to fix them, you can succeed in UX, UI, whatever. You can succeed. You don't have to be an artist. You don't even have to know CSS at this point, which I know everyone hates. So today I just wanted to give a few tips that I've done and that I do to just like nurture that creative designer person that I believe lives within all of us. Every programmer I've met is creative, whether they realize it or not. So I'm going to share those with you and go from there. So my first tip is, of two, I only have two. I ran out of time. My first tip is find a safe environment. So when we were children, we were curious. We played without inhibitions. The world was our secret garden. But as we grow up, we begin to, whether it's the school system or not, I don't know, we just begin to start to worry about making mistakes. We worry about raising our hand and not knowing if it's the right answer. Like, we worry what others think of us. We even like worry like, who am I? Like, I don't even know who I am. I went through that as a kid. So all of this collectively just strips us from our once creative and spontaneous spirit, quite literally. And so if you want to dive into like a more like front-facing creative type of role, you have to be really comfortable with being wrong. You just have to, like, you have to be willing to make mistakes in the name of creativity and innovation. You're going to be front and center because all the other chains of your company, typically all they really understand is that layer. They don't really know what goes behind the scenes, so they're focused on that, and you have to be willing to subject yourself to that. Another thing is it is subjective. You know, there is no right or wrong answer once you get into this world. So yeah, I mean, just be prepared to make mistakes every day and get thick skin. It's just part of the territory. So when I say find a safe environment, what I mean is that like either find, join, or create a team that doesn't finger point. Seek out a boss that encourages taking risks, and just be okay with knowing like, I didn't get it this time, I'm gonna get it next time, and if I don't get it that time, I'm gonna try again. Just create a safe environment for you. Create a safe environment with your colleagues where you can just be wrong, and it's okay. It doesn't matter. Like, we know the end result is going to be awesome, so this is just part of it. That doesn't exist everywhere, I mean, in organizations. So if you can, you know, even if you just find like a few people in your team that you can trust, whatever, like just find that and find a safe place to bounce ideas. My second tip is bend the rules. So I love this story. You guys might know who the guy is, but I'm not going to say his name. So Steve Jobs, no, I'm not going to say the other guy's name. So Steve Jobs walks into, this is a true story, walks into a cubicle of one of his engineers, like, I guess in the 80s, early 90s. This guy's working on the new Macintosh operating system. He walks in and he's like, this is taking too long to boot up. Like, nope. And so the engineer gets his like hat on and he's like, I'm going to explain to you why reducing the boot up time is not possible. This is why, this is why, this is why. Which I'm sure his reasons are completely valid. And Steve Jobs cuts him off and he says, so if it would save a person's life, could you find a way to shave 10 seconds off the boot time? And his response, which I love, is, probably. I feel like every time we get cornered and your boss is like, can you do it, can you do it, can you do it? And you're like, probably? Don't know. We'll see. So he's not enthused with that response. So he goes up to the whiteboard and he's like, look at this. Okay, 5 million people, say 5 million people are using this Mac. And it takes 10 seconds extra to turn it on every day. That adds up to 300 million or so hours a year, which is equivalent to 100 lifetimes lost in 1 year. So, you know, he gives them the time and space to do it, and a few weeks later he brings it back to him and it boots up 28 seconds faster. So what I mean by bend the rules is, I mean, when you're thinking about experience in your application, don't like tell yourself, oh, only 5 people really are going to use this part. So, I mean, really, let's just do it. Like, they need it today. It's just a couple people. Who cares? Doesn't matter. Or, you know, anything like that. Like, just assume, like, the biggest scenario. You know, 1,000 people, maybe 5 people use it today, but 1,000 are going to use it next week. And I'm not going to have time to redo it once it's there. Or if I redo it once it's there, it's not going to be as good as it could have been from the beginning. So when I say bend the rules, I just mean like obviously 100 lifetimes a year aren't going to be saved because this computer boots up faster, but just think as big as you can, and when you do that, like, you'll be more inclined to really go through that creative process and really think about getting it right. Yeah, let's see. So I love it. We all saw the world more clearly when we saw it for the first time. But essentially, just a lifetime of habits got in the way, things we discussed. So my challenge for you all is to try to get back there. Like I said, give into those defeating moments and just seek out those little details and bend the rules and become that innovator, that creative person on your team. Whether you thought that would ever be you or not, like, try it, embrace it. It might be, you might be amazing at it. This isn't easy. I mean, but essentially it requires us to push back against one of the most basic ways that we make sense of the world. So, but if you do it, and if you find a way, and like you go down that path, like, you can do some really amazing things. And most people that have done amazing things have been in that mindset. So for me personally, I want to be a better UX designer. For you, taking this approach, that can mean something totally different, completely unrelated to tech, but either way, it's going to be powerful. And so basically, just like when you wake up in the morning, just be like, okay, whether this happens or not, like, I'm gonna try to like look for things that I can improve, whether that's at work or whatever, and I'm gonna suggest it. Like, the UX team, it's their job, they'll get to it, but I'm the closest one to it right now. I'm the one working on it right now. I'm the expert. I might actually know a better way than they are, you know, even though they have like hundreds of hours of research in the best way to go about this. And they should be receptive to that, for sure. So if we all do that, if I do that, you do that, we all do that, I'm thinking that maybe in this room we can find a way to shut up Charlie into a 1. That's all I got.